Boston Podcast Players.
The story thus far.
Cast of characters.
Empress of
An
Rome.
entity or demon.
A run-of-the-mill Polish guy in his 40s. Setting.
In a small hut
A
in the
long
city of
forgotten
Beijing.
era that lives both in the
Act
past.
1,
We
Scene 1.
create the
possible.
world with the stories we tell
Act
about
1,
ourselves.
Scene
Because
2.
Steven, he could
Act
be anywhere,
1,
right?
Scene 3.
Don't give up the ship!
Cannon fire.
Bianca pushes the stop button. The end.
Hi everyone, this is your host Greg. Now we've been in the preliminary stages of planning a season 3 of the podcast. And by that I mean very preliminary. Months from now preliminary. And then COVID-19 happened, and now everyone is stuck inside a weird, scary, immersive theater experiment we never asked to be in. And I'm sure we've seen all these ways that playwrights and theater makers are trying to connect with one another while social distancing. Online Zoom readings, coronavirus play contest, pop-up masterclasses, and everything else. We also know that lots of playwrights saw a lot of opportunities and productions just disappear because of this. And of course, lots of playwrights might just be struggling in general. So with that in mind, I put out a call. I can't produce a season of the podcast right now like I have been, and neither could the others who wanted to come on board. But we did have this platform available, so I put out the word that if any two playwrights out there in the region wanted to record one of these Zoom or FaceTime calls that we're now also experienced in, talk for a bit about how they're coping these days, and then send it to me at bospodplay@gmail.com, I would go ahead and post it as an episode. This offer extends to any Boston area playwright, including you listening there, probably. So, let me present Season 3, a special emergency season, the Great Boston Isolation Check-In. Unlike a normal season, I'll post these whenever I get them. I don't have any set schedule. I just want to hear from everyone out there. How are you all doing? How are you coping? Our first taker, say hello again to MJ Halberstadt, talking with Caity-Shea Violette.
Hi, this is MJ Halberstadt. I'm a playwright in Brookline, Massachusetts, and I'm talking to Caity-Shea Violette for Boston Podcast Players. How are you doing, Caity-Shea? How are you coping?
I'm doing pretty good overall. I'm fortunate that I am kind of naturally an introvert, so this isn't like killing me to spend a bunch of time in my apartment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, overall I'm doing okay. I'm a grad student at BU, so I'm bummed to not have my final semester of classes with everyone. Of course, my cat feeder is going off right now. We'll just wait a second. It's just dispensing cat food. We're so close.
I need that, but for coffee.
Oh my God, yes. Just a machine constantly feeding me on a timer. That's honestly the goal.
Honestly.
But yeah, so I'm a grad student at BU, and this is my last semester of classes. So that's been kind of a weird transition of doing everything online, but it's really fortunate that I can do that. How are you? How are you coping?
I am coping by playing Animal Crossing, by knitting a lot, by allowing myself to get distracted with work tasks. I'm teaching classes at Northeastern and at Emerson, and so a lot of my emotional energy is devoted to trying to make an online format work and trying to accommodate for the really, really wide range of needs that have emerged. And I'm doing the best job I can at creating the most low-tech version of the class, the most asynchronous version of the class as possible. I feel like that's what I can do right now. And I'm also finally trying to work on cooking, because I've always been like very stressed out when I cook or bake, and I lean on my husband to do most of the cooking. But on Wednesday, I made Sami Nosrat's spicy fried chicken.
Ooh, look at you.
It was so good.
Oh, yeah, I have been the worst with cooking lately. I just finished my first draft of my thesis play, so I was pulling that card and definitely having my partner make most of our meals for the last week and a half.
I was about to ask, I heard you talked to somebody off screen. I know you've got Walter, the cat, with you.
I do. I have Walter and Henry, my cats.
Okay. Are they named for anyone?
Are you what?
Are they named for any notable humans?
So I thought I was really funny when I was like 21 when I got them. So it's Walter Croncat. He's gray, so I thought it really spoke to his character. And Henry David Perot. So yeah, that's about it. I also have a leopard gecko named Bean who is really thriving in quarantine, let me tell you.
And you have your partner there with you as well?
I do, yeah. His name's Alec, and it's actually been kind of lovely. We're both in theater and constantly busy, so it's the most that we've seen each other in such a long time. It's been really lovely to actually get that time. That was kind of a struggle, obviously. He does scenic design and building. He was working with a production company, so when everybody canceled their shows, that was like a firm halt to everything he was working on. So that's been kind of a tough transition with this. Fortunately, with my writing stuff, I didn't have any current productions going up, so most of my stuff could be transferred online, which was really helpful.
The next question on our list is actually sort of exactly what we're speaking to. How has the virus and resulting social distancing measures affected you? I hear you about how it changes the dynamic of a relationship. I'm glad that it sounds like it's been working well for you both.
Yeah, honestly, that part has been surprisingly lovely. There's always the question when you're like, okay, so we've never been quarantined together in a 1-bedroom apartment with 2 cats and a gecko. How's that going to go? Happy to report that it's going very well from that angle. How about you? You and your husband, do you guys have pets? Is it the two of you?
We do not have pets. We've definitely had to negotiate the space with a lot of intention. He works as a therapist at Fenway Health. And as I was telling you before, he sets himself up in the bedroom with the air purifier as loud as it goes to maintain privacy and confidentiality and all of that. And I'm here in the living room doing a lot of my online teaching and taking care of other stuff. My brother, who's one of the most thoughtful people I know, shared with me early on, because he's in the Bay Area and they had the shelter-in-place mandate quite a bit sooner than we did. He told me that he and his wife had a very intentional conversation about making sure to prioritize their alone time, which he made sure to sort of distinguish as different than time that you spend in a room by yourself doing work.
That's so important.
Totally. They've sort of set up their, not guidelines, what do I mean? Like parameters around time that they will each spend on their own without the other interrupting unless something like really egregious has happened. And so Nicholas and I definitely adopted that so that we can get a little time to be away from one another, which I think is a normal function. Normally I would be spending time going to see plays or spending time with any human other than him. And I think it's important to do that. The other thing that we haven't done yet, but that I really want to do is designate a fancy date night.
Yes.
I bought a new pair of jeans and a new pair of slippers, but I'm wearing these same jeans and these same slippers every single day. So I want to pick a day where we get dressed up and I want to get fancy dinner things and sit down to a candlelit dinner or whatever, dressed up nicely, just like we would if we wanted to have a date night.
That's so lovely. I love that idea. When we first moved in together, we had to have that conversation too of okay, so when are we just hanging out and able to watch Netflix and whatever and be on our computers or whatever? And when are we actually having a date night? And when are we in the same place working independently, cannot talk to each other? How do you get those divisions? And I feel all of that has definitely come up again. I love that idea of having make a fancy restaurant in your house. think that's lovely.
That's the other thing, is that we have a lot of lofty ideas of like, oh, we should do this and we should do that. And like, how many of them have we actually done? I have this marker board, like a white marker board. Thankfully, I had enough expo markers because I'm an adjunct and they were literally in my backpack. But we have like a color-coded thing, and it's like my tasks for the week, our house tasks for the week, and then a list of all of the people that we want to make sure that we're in touch with regularly, and when was the last time that we talked with them. So the next question on the list is similarly about how life is different. The question is, what projects have been inspired by what's happening? What projects that you've seen inspire you right now? Are you focusing on that? You're shaking your head.
No, I'm not. And I felt really guilty in some aspects. I've seen a lot of those challenges, which I think are so lovely and such a beautiful representation of like the theater community coming together and wanting to support each other. I have not been feeling inspired to write stuff. Part of that might have been too, because I was pouring all of that energy into trying to get a draft of my thesis done. But I'm seeing things. I've been invited to do a couple like 10-minute play challenges or something like that. I'm like, oh man, I feel there's that like extra guilt as a creative sometimes where you're like, oh, every single second I'm alive, I could also be writing. And that like constant undercurrent of just like stress about sort of the world has kind of been impacting that for me. How about you? Are you able to get a lot of writing done?
I would love to know if you're experiencing this as well. I look back at the projects that I worked on before the world turned upside down in this way, and they all feel completely useless and pointless to the new paradigm that we are entering. And I have very few ideas about what I want to work on that is for this current moment, because I also don't know what's on the other side. I'll tell you, Frankly, I believe that we are going to be in some kind of social isolation like this probably through fall 2021, just based on what I'm reading. And I don't see the theater community talking about that possibility. They're talking about moving things to next season, which it's the kind of thing I really, really hope I'm wrong about.
Yeah.
But if I'm right, then I think we need to start thinking about how, as writers, we are engaging with people who are in social isolation. I think it's going to become very urgent, but it doesn't resemble anything that most of us have written. I attended a reading of a cycle of plays that my friend Laura Neal wrote. She's in Austin now.
Yeah, I love Laura.
And I don't think she would mind my saying this. It was actually pretty difficult to watch because of the timing of the dialogue was so off. I mean, partly that is because what she wrote, and this isn't a criticism, what she wrote was not written with the digital divide between characters in mind.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And it was sort of forced into that. And so as I'm thinking about projects that I have, I'm working on an opera. We're supposed to do a workshop in June. I really don't want to try to figure out how to time the music in such a way. And I also don't think that computer microphones are useful for hearing a singer.
Probably not the best way to do that.
No. And then I'm working on The Usual Unusual as part of Speakeasy's Boston project. And we're trying to figure out what that event is going to look like. And we had a conversation about it yesterday. I think the team is in pretty much agreement. We don't want to do a traditional Zoom staged reading. Instead, it might involve something along the lines of like an audio recording or sharing the script with people to read in advance, and then have a conversation about the play live over Zoom where it just becomes a dialogue. And in a way, it's sort of more like a book club. That's one of the things that Artistic Director Paul Dagneau was talking about. A book club model could be a useful way to sort of gather people around a theatrical text.
I love that. I love that idea, and being able to still get that feedback and dissect text and in a really exciting way that's still building community, but not trying to force something into a different format that it wasn't made for. I'm really curious about making more, like trying to actually write audio plays or like more radio plays. And I think if anything, what I'm inspired to write from this moment is like changing the format of what I do. I don't really want to write about isolation as much right now because I'm sort of wanting a break from that.
I think that's smart. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this would be like a great time to explore that. And there's so many exciting opportunities through like Audible. And I've just seen some, I know in Chicago, they have one that's like a horror radio show fest. So I'm really excited about like what within plays and within dialogue, like how specifically using the element of not having a visual component, how can we increase suspense and make it really like exciting and use the best of the form to tell the story?
Yeah. I'm also hearing a lot of people pushing back against the live streaming of shows because I think that's along the lines of what you're saying. When we record a play, it is no longer live.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just like do not like watching it. I feel both ways about it. I have enjoyed watching staged productions. Through Northeastern, I have access to an archive of recorded theater, and Fiona Shaw does Hedda Gabler in like the 70s. Like, I kind of want to watch that.
Yes, that would be amazing.
There's that, and I'm half-heartedly launching this like quarantine lunch break theater Instagram channel where people are recording 1-minute plays or having casts record them and whatever. But it's different. At that point, they're short films.
Oh, totally.
And that's different than plays. One thing that I have been thinking about is the landscape of immersive theater, which I've never really seen Boston commit to in any sort of institutional way.
Sure.
And I wonder what immersive forms can exist in the space of digital communication.
Yeah, I was in a workshop in Minneapolis as an actor 7 or 8 years ago that was exploring the idea of like play told entirely through people like live streaming themselves. All of the characters were like communicating online, and the people would walk around the space and be like sending texts about it. So you're trying, as an audience member, trying to figure out in real time what's happening in the story. And it's sort of this like spooky, suspenseful sort of situation. I feel like that could maybe be a cool option.
Can you say a little bit more about where and how does an audience member encounter this?
Oh, sure. So in this, I mean, at the plan at the time for this particular project, it was like they would have screens around the space, and you could go into the characters' rooms and like you'd be finding out the story, getting bits and pieces of information from watching the screen and watching the character in their room and moving through the space. But I'd be really curious to see like how would that happen if you're not in physical space? And could there be a video component to something that is more intentionally written for a recorded format? I don't know. That could be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, then you're venturing into the space of, is that just a short film then at that point?
It sounds interactive. That sounds like interactive media that borders a game. But I don't know, like maybe there's a model where you get the Skype handles for a bunch of fictional characters and all of the actors are standing by, or like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It would be a fun experiment.
And then what's tough is like, so with like the quarantine lunch break theater Instagram channel thing, I've offered for playwrights to write 1-minute plays and then they send them to the actors or they perform them themselves. But a lot of folks' circumstances are changing very, very quickly. I mean, like, that's totally understandable. It's hard to rely on anything these days.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the perils of trying to create live theater right now, which is a lovely segue into the next question. Ooh. Is there anything you need right now? Is there anything you're offering?
Oh man, anything I need right now. I feel like the biggest thing I need, which honestly I'm getting in a lot of respects, is just sort of like a little bit of a relaxation, if anything, from myself for artistic expectations. And I think that actually opens the door for me when I am not putting that pressure on myself to feel like I need to create, to actually reconnect with myself and my subconscious and try to find that inspiration. I'm craving space, but I feel like I definitely have access to it. As far as things I can offer, I certainly have a wealth of time now and availability. So I'm definitely happy to laugh generously at anyone's readings and be a good audience member for what we can try to do through live theater. And yeah, I mean, try to provide connection. That's about what I've got. What about you?
I love the offer of laughing generously, and I just imagine a playwright being like, but it's a tragedy. Why are you laughing?
Too bad.
That was my offer. I said I was going to laugh, and I laughed. What do I need right now? I think you're right. I need space too. I think most of the things I keep beginning sentences in my brain with I need, but they're all things that like I need to give myself permission to take a breath. I need to get better at organizing how I spend my time and staying disciplined to the things that I resolve to do. I need for this episode to be over.
Yeah. You mentioned that you have your whiteboard for managing time and trying to create more of like a schedule for yourself. Do you have any other methods that you're using to try to give yourself structure?
I was thinking just today that I want to write a list of tasks that I want to do every week, resolve to do all of them every week, but it doesn't matter what order it is. And that list of things would be both things that I want to do, I need to do, and should do that are good for me. And so I picture like arms, abs, cardio, lower body, but also like cook a thing, read an old play, read a new play, spend 5 hours a week writing, or actually, here's how I want to frame that time. I want to designate an hour a day or something where I either will sit there and do nothing or write.
I love that, like to create the space to imagine and think. And I joke with my partner about like one of the most crucial parts of my writing process is staring blankly at a corner for like an hour and a half. Yeah, just like letting my brain like think, like kind of run into walls and be able to solve those challenges before I get onto the page.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic.
We'll see if I can actually commit to it or if I just keep playing Animal Crossing.
Okay, so I need to know what Animal Crossing is because as someone who loves animals and loves video games, I feel like this is something I need to have in my life. And you need like a Nintendo for it, right?
Oh yeah, you need a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
It is. I mean, it's a giant time suck. I'm sure you have your own time sucks. This is just the popular one of the moment.
I've been seeing so many things about it, and it looks delightful.
Yeah, it's stupid. That doesn't mean I don't love it, but it is stupid. Are there any other things that you want to tell the playwrights and new play lovers of the world that we have not covered?
I'm thinking, well, now that I've thoroughly expressed my mistrust of live streamed theater potentially, I do have a 10-minute play in the Boston Theater Marathon that will be live streamed. I don't know what day it's going to be, but if you're watching the Boston Theater Marathon stuff, this particular play was recently the winner of the 2020 Gary Garrison 10-minute play award through the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival. So that was another thing that got impacted by the virus. It was supposed to have a staged reading at the Kennedy Center in DC and get an award there. But I still get to share it with people on Zoom.
Without the barrier of geography, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that actually is really lovely. And I'm excited potentially for the possibility of inviting like literary managers if I wanted to do a reading of a full length and be able to share that a lot wider and just with friends and family in different states. It's really cool to get that opportunity.
Yay. I feel like the last thing I want to say is that I really, really hope the companies and institutions and universities of the world are prepared to allow our art form to evolve and change and find new priorities. Because the last thing in the world I want is to come back to theater to to live performance theater and see that it is unchanged and faces all of the problems that it did before this. You know, like we have needed evolution of the form, and if we're gonna pandemic, let's pandemic right, and let's have an evolution on the other side of it.
I love that. And yeah, how if this is inevitably going to change us, how do we welcome that change and integrate it for the better? Do you have any suggestions or things that you'd love to see in theater evolve?
It's trite to say, but like I really want artistic directors and artistic leaders to be bold and be present and to take risks and to give their audiences credit.
Yes.
And like tell new stories, tell original stories, tell local stories. Stop recycling the old crap. I don't know. Like I'm gonna pick on the revival that what's it called? Little Shop of Horrors seemed to have last year. Like why? Maybe there's a reason for it, and I just didn't see the production, so I can't speak to it. But like, why do we need more goddamn Little Shop of Horrors when, and I don't write musicals, so like I have no horse in this race, but there's people writing new musicals right now. Why are we prioritizing the old guard of them? And that's just like one example, but I'm just like, of course always frustrated by the fact that we have companies in Boston that tout themselves. We had a company called Zeitgeist Theater that did not do new plays. Zeitgeist.
Ooh.
I mean, like, they're gone now, and that's sad. But like, there's that, and then you have like the Lyric, which calls itself Boston's Off-Broadway, but they have never done a new play. They've done plays that are like current and are written by New York and Chicago playwrights that were off-Broadway. But to me, that is not the same thing as Boston's off-Broadway. And I think companies like that are such fucking weenies. If you're scared of not getting an audience, then do a play by, Kate Snodgrass.
Oh, everyone should be doing plays by Kate Snodgrass.
Exactly. Like if you're scared of someone that people don't know, then remember that there are writers that everybody does know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that's so unique about the Boston theater scene now that I'm here, because I spent the last couple of years in Chicago and was from Minneapolis before that, I really love, it seems like there's a lot of love for the local artists and a lot of, specifically within smaller theater companies, a lot of commitment to supporting that, even just like with Speakeasy, with the Boston Project, things like that. And I feel like we could lean into that more and trust that more in programming and trust that there is a community here. And the more that we foster that and build that, the more it'll grow.
And we were talking about Danny Snyder-Young before. She's a brilliant mind when it comes to devised theater, and I don't see companies really doing much with devised theater, with new musicals, with experimental, with solo performance, with plays that are conceived by designers or choreographers. I mean, let alone the demographic concerns of what our theater seasons look like.
Yeah.
Anyway, a lot of those were, I think, our complaints before the world turned upside down in this way, but they're still there.
That is very true. Yeah, one thing that you had mentioned that it's like the place you had been working on before, now that circumstances of the world have changed so much, feel like they've really shifted. The current play that I'm working on is about the American healthcare system and specifically management. Yeah, it's called RX Machina, and specifically exploring pharmaceutical marketing in the opioid epidemic. So I'm really excited about that, but I'm definitely like looking at it through a lens of how much of that happens in person and how much of that could be shifted in this new world, and wondering if things are going to resonate the same way still.
I'm like taking what you just said and like running with it. Sorry, I'm just stealing it.
Do it. Go with it.
I helped facilitate a reading of revisions of scenes that students at Northeastern wrote in the playwriting class that I'm instructing. Mm-hmm. And they wrote the plays to be about climate change. But a lot of them, on top of transforming because they were revised, the way they landed on the ear felt so different, even without necessarily like being reconstructed to be about COVID. They just landed totally differently. Like one play was about a trio of parents wearing masks to offset and trying to get their children to wear the masks to offset the ingestion of smog.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It feels totally different given the very different discourse that we're having about masks. And there are like 14 other examples of ways in which plays just land very, very differently. And I think we do face a decision. Do we want to adapt the work to try to make it about? Is it enough to just allow things to be imperfect metaphors for one another?
Yeah, that is going to be a really interesting challenge. I feel like we faced a similar thing after the election in 2016 of like, yeah, now this line lands differently, and then saying this particular phrase lands very differently. I'm very curious to see how that changes. And I think that's going to be one of those, like, as you go, wait and see things with new work. And one of the beautiful things about being able to have audiences involved in and getting that live conversation of people responding to how something resonated with them now will be really interesting to see. That kind of book club format could really serve that.
Thank you for listening, people who are listening.
Yeah.
This has been MJ Halberstadt.
And Caity-Shea Violette.
Make sure you watch Caity-Shea's 10-minute play in the Boston Theater Marathon. Or if you've written a 1-minute play and you want to include it in Quarantine Lunch Break Theater, the Instagram account, get in touch with me. I'm at mjhalberstadt@gmail.com. I'm sure the episode will tell you how to spell Halberstadt. I hate spelling it out loud. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, this is Manuel Lopez. I'm a playwright in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and today I am talking to Charmaine Santiago Galdón for Boston Podcast Players. Hi, Charmaine. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Just, trying to hang in there, knowing with the situation that we're all going through, it's impacting everybody in many different ways. So
yeah, completely. Yeah, I'm on the same boat, definitely.
So tell me a little bit about how have you been impacted, and what are you doing to cope, and how are you doing in general?
I literally just came back like a few weeks ago doing a project in Puerto Rico with my father, and it was for a concert. He's part of the band that's called Haciendo Punto Noto Song, and I was doing some acting. I was doing acting, pantomiming at their concert, and it was great, but slowly but surely, as soon as we came back, I started seeing different shift that was happening in the airport and people wearing masks. I was like, okay, this is pretty serious.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I came back, I started noticing within the weeks there was a bit of panic that was happening, and I noticed that people in the community, the artist community, were concerned about in terms of like income and stuff like that, and getting emails from the Boston Foundation about how to help the community of artists due to this pandemic that we are all facing. So, yeah.
Wow. And I mean, I'm glad you were able to go to Puerto Rico and at least fulfill that project, because I know a lot of things, especially for me and my personal experience, things have just been literally shut down and postponed until further notice. So it's nice to hear that was able to be completed.
Yeah, I had one project that I had pending. I did an audition for Emerson College, and I'm assuming that the young lady, she's a grad student. So I just finished doing did an video audition. I sent that to her, and then after a while, I didn't hear from her until she was like, that obviously had impacted in terms of like what are the next steps. She was like, I will keep you posted. I was just like, yeah. So this is pretty serious right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So how have What are some of the effects that you're seeing in your day-to-day, knowing that we're doing social distancing and quarantine and all of those things?
At first, I was getting up early and then going to the gym, and then the gym got closed, and I was like, all right, I was like, I think that it's time for me to start. I started like going to the store, stocking up food, things that were needed. I live by myself. So that's one of those things. I was like, all right, I got to prepare myself because I don't know how serious this is. Like, I feel like this is going to be something serious. So I want to make sure that I have everything in terms of like, and luckily I have a mother who lives in the same apartment building. So we're just like been supporting as much as we can, but I can't really see her. I can't see my dad. So that's one thing. So being home by myself is like, okay, I try to find something to kind of like keep myself occupied. But I do get, worried about my parents, because they're a little bit older in terms of like how it's going to affect them. I always want a hug from my mom. My mom texted me. She was like, oh, I want to give you a hug right now. And I was like, I know. But we can't. So, yeah.
I know it's tough. I definitely agree with you on that because I'm currently in a position where I'm back home and I'm living with my parents, and I'm not necessarily as concerned for myself because I know I can, take care of myself, and pretty healthy individual. Don't have any pre-existing conditions necessarily, but I know how big of an impact this is for different age groups, especially those who are older and have other conditions. So it concerns me in that way, like you are concerned for your parents, because I know it may not affect me as severely, but I could be a carrier of the COVID-19 virus and pass it on. And that's what I would hate to be the reason why I bring it into the home.
Right.
And even just culturally speaking, you being Puerto Riqueña and me being from the Dominican Republic, the greeting, the kiss on the cheek, and the things that are so innate to us is changing because now everybody has to be so mindful of the social distancing and how our social behavior is changing.
Exactly. It's like if you think about, I noticed it because I've been going to the store a lot, and I noticed that they're already like placing tapes on the floor, creating a line as to how close can you be, keeping 6 feet away from each other when you're about to go to the cash register and everything. And I'm just like, wow. And it's you can tell it's a little bit of, I try to be patient, but sometimes other people don't have the patience and get frustrated, and I can feel the panic that's happening too. So that's one of those things. But what I've been, trying to also tapping into getting more into herbal medicine. I've been reaching out to friends who are herbalists, buying stuff to them to support them as well. In terms of I will support them, especially the fact that because of the economic aspect that's really going to impact, with money, try to help them as much as we can for each other, because we don't know what's going to happen, in terms of people's jobs and, just, being able to pay for their household income as well.
I know, it's such a fluid situation, and it just keeps changing, you think that it's settling, but, just now, I think I just saw today on my notifications that the CDC is now actually putting on the recommendation, please wear a mask if you're going outside, and then also the quarantine continues to get longer and longer, so it's just where is the end of the tunnel?
Right, exactly. And even though I started wearing the mask before they started doing that, because just watching the news, how, cause my friend, one of my best friends in Puerto Rico, she's finishing her grad studies to be as a nurse practitioner, and she was telling me that you have to make sure you come home, make sure you have to strip the clothes that you have on, get it washed right away, because that also sticks in your clothes. I'm like, oh, that's anxiety. What the hell? How do I do all this stuff? And so it's just get into that type of new normal is crazy. You have to carry with I guess hand sanitizer, making sure you wash your hands so much. That's one thing. Make sure that the temperature is like, warm to hot, because that also kills germs.
Right.
It's like now you have, and I started wearing a mask before all this, before the CDC had recommended for everyone to do the same thing, but just paying attention to my surroundings too. But I make sure I try to do my part in terms of like, taking care of myself, like eating a lot of ginger. If I walk, I go outside. I don't keep my distance with people. I mean, I'm kind of antisocial anyway, so it's easy. So that's one thing. So yeah, it's the new normal that I can tell it's frustrating, but it's like I'm just gonna bear with it, because hopefully there will be a light to all of it, like you said, like a light in the tunnel. Right.
Yeah, and it's definitely challenging for everybody. Yeah. And from what I've heard at least, and what I'm coming across is, this is literally impacting our lives forever in more ways than one, and as minor as it may be, even just from the simple fact of social interaction and how people are going to be more mindful about hugs and shaking hands and the spread of germs and how things can live on surfaces and things of that nature. So it's definitely heightening everybody's senses around public health as well, and all those types of related issues that we're all coping with. So I know it's definitely hard to stay positive, but it's what needs to happen in order for us to be able to make it out of this situation. And I think if everybody puts in their part, in protecting themselves and taking care of themselves and looking out for others, I think that's the best way that we can move forward and hopefully, surpass all of this. Time will tell, and this too shall pass are some of the affirmation mantras that I like to kind of keep myself in tune with in my head for a positive outlook.
Exactly. I think this is supposed to happen for some odd, weird reason, but this is supposed to happen, and eventually we'll know why. You think about it too, the world has got if you look at how the globe looks like now, it looks more cleaner, and the world is, and Mother Nature is actually more happier than it was before.
I've heard that through the quarantine that's happening, it's had positive effects on the environment, like less air pollution, and wildlife is feeling less threatened by the presence of people being around. People are spotting more wildlife. So it's really interesting to see that we're going through a challenging time, but at the same time, we're producing positive effects in another light.
I think for me, I just try to look at it like I was reflecting not so long ago. I actually said this to myself. I was like, what did my ancestors did? Like, if they were able to survive, then we can get over it. We can survive off of this too. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah, that's something that we can also reflect on to help encourage us too, because we have so many more advances these days. So it's making sure that we put our resources together to make it through. So switching gears just a little bit, because I know this is everybody's hot topic. It's obviously at the forefront of everything, but to kind of reel it back a little bit towards some of the things that we do personally, and especially knowing you're one of my fellow community members in the theater world. Have you been working on anything recently, or is there anything that you feel is going to inspire new work given the current situation? Anything that has been affected that you were previously working on? Any updates in that realm?
Yeah, well, actually, I had just finished a project on March 3rd. I did it back to back. First was at the end of January. I was working a concert in Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. My dad is part of a band since they started in the like mid 70s towards the 80s. It's a group called Haciendo Punto en Otro Son. And their music is based on the roots of like the, revolutionary and activism music through the Puerto Rican folkloric music, with a little bit of plena and with bomba. And I did it at the end of January, and then the producer was so happy that he wanted us to come back to do a theater piece of a song. I was doing a pantomime of a song in their concert series, and
nice.
I was a mother. Yeah, and they were celebrating 40 años de la muralla, and that's a song, and it's a really popular song on the Boricuas really love. You actually listen to their songs. They have some of their songs up on YouTube.
Okay.
And yeah, so I was acting as a mother with this little boy from Loíza, from my hometown in Puerto Rico. My mom's side of the family, Loíza, and it was great. The experience was amazing. The seeing the audience after dealing with all this chaos was happening, with what happened with the government issue and the government shutdown. I felt great to be able to give that medicine through music and theater, and the reaction of the public after was very overwhelming in such a great way. And by the time I was heading back with my dad, the energy just kind of shifted a little bit, and it because of the pandemic that was arising and in the airport and stuff like that. I was like, oh boy,
yeah.
So, yeah, but I'm glad that I fulfilled that part, and I did an video audition for this young lady at Emerson College, and it sent her a video audition that she asked me because they recommended me from her, and so I did that, and I sent her my submission, and I noticed that they were closing the colleges here, especially in Boston. I was like, my little brother just came back from school. Like, I don't think we're not going to do this project.
Right.
And she reached out to me again, and she was like, we're going to put stuff on pause right now. And I was like, no, totally, no worries. I completely understand. Because everything is in the air. So we don't know what's happening, So,
literally, everything is in the air.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, though, that the project that you did in Puerto Rico, the way you referenced it, it was the medicine to the public. And I truly believe in the power of art, especially performative art and all types of art, as a way to help uplift and help heal people and give people inspiration and motivation. So it's beautiful because, at a time like this where we're experiencing this COVID-19 pandemic, that's what we need, So us as artists, it's an amazing thing that we can continue to provide that community remedy through the arts. So, and even also speaking a little bit towards that audition that was postponed, it reminded me also of a project that we were recently working on together this past fall, Esto es Puerto Rico. And there were talks of, potentially reiterating that production again sometime this year with your dad, the mastermind behind it all, producing it and directing it and everything. Do you have any updates on that as far as where that stands, given all of this?
Yeah, so we just submitted the application for the New England Foundation, and so we got the video submission, which I can definitely send that to you. They recorded the whole project when it was filmed at the show on November 16th of 2019. And so after that, we submitted the application for the New England Foundation, and so they were interested to look into for the new cycle for the funds, and so we submitted that. And with the video, thankfully, that helps to kind of really helps to have a glimpse of the project, and people will be interested in that, where we can share that to other people for this important work that was formed, the positive impact that had that created to the public, and to just sort of grow. Our goal is to at some point to have it be toured as well.
Oh, wow.
So that's one of those things that we want to put that out to the universe to see. I mean, for me also, I would like to be more on stage and more like doing film and acting and stuff like that too, because I'm always behind the scenes and everything. But we did that, to kind of like to put it out there, because I think it was something that was never done before, and we just putting out anything that we can put out to the universe, that will help to create an impact to the Latino community, especially the Puerto Rican community, and like the arts for people of color,
Definitely. Yeah, and just being part of that production with you and you were behind the scenes and in the scenes. Not only did you write for that production, but you were also very much a part of it and an integral cast member of it. So I really hope that it does get to come to fruition and manifest, because just speaking from experience and feedback that I got, even though I was also in the production, people were overwhelmingly impacted in a positive way from that production, and were just raving about it. And just even the energy in that house that day, in that space where we were literally packed to the brim, people standing for a show, was just such a beautiful experience. So I just wanted to check in on that and really hope that it does, everything that you guys are putting out into the universe does become manifested, and we just gotta stay positive.
When I went back to Puerto Rico, I was talking to some of my two friends that I had put their name as the characters of the play, the play, and the temporal, and I was talking to them about the project that I did, and they were super happy. And I was just like, while I was there, I was trying to but more to kind of find this as inspiration as to and get more feedback of what the people are, dealing with after the aftermath of Hurricane Maria, and how, because I'm really passionate about to continue working on that, which there still has been, issues after the government situation that's been happening. Like, if people are still frustrated with the whole thing with the new governor that's there right now. She's a woman, and a lot of weird stuff started happening over there when I was there. And I thought it was really interesting, wanting to document. So one of my goals is to kind of do more voice recording of to document my friends, as if what we're doing right now,
right? As
if a phone conversation, to kind of have more of that, to for the people to have that type of energy, they were really there into that conversation, and to feel that anxiety of what it was, and the people to experience that type of anxiety. The anxiety that we're dealing right now, what I mean? So that's one of those things. The island is still dealing with the effects, and now is dealing with this bigger effect too, because they're also been hit by the pandemic too.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah. So it just keeps piling on. So it's and I can definitely see how that's inspiring you to maybe produce something that will be your next project, or add on to what you have existing. So that's really powerful. All right, well, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me and catch up. I hope that you continue to stay safe and well, and I extend that out to all of your family and loved ones and just the community in general. It was really nice catching up with you and hearing how you're doing, especially amidst all this craziness that's happening. But it's good to hear that you're well. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and thank you. And I'm glad that you're well as well. And I'm glad we were able to catch up too as well.
Thanks again to MJ Halberstadt, Caity-Shea Violette, Manuel Lopez, and Charmaine Santiago Galdón. If you are a Boston area playwright and you want to take part, find a friend and give them a call and talk about whatever's on your mind, however you're coping through this isolation period, record it, and send it to bospodplay@gmail.com. Stay safe.
Follow us on Twitter at bospodplay and on Facebook. Please rate us on iTunes or your podcast player of choice. You can support us on Patreon at bospodplay. Our theme was composed by Thomas Deus, thomasdeusmusic.com. Additional music by bensound.com. Other than yourself, do you know of a Boston area playwright who you'd like to be featured on the show? Let us know at bospodplay@gmail.com.